Thank you for carving out some time for me to present on what kind of I've been working on over the past year. And really, I didn't do a lot of the work. I was just kind of on the team, giving my thoughts and opinions. And there were a couple developers that did the majority of the work. But like Randy said, this was a national STI team. It was led by Jim Nelson at WPC. And he kind of had this vision to integrate some tools together that basically put the forecasted weather in context. So I'm just going to first kind of go over what he envisioned to be the scope of this project, and then give a brief demonstration. So you can read the bullet points there. The scope and the purpose of this project kind of goes toward the thought that effective IDSS requires our forecasters to place current forecast information into proper climatological context. We know from past studies that have shown that comparing expected events to past events puts anticipated impacts into perspective and allows our decision makers a model from which to act. So with that in mind, I think alerting the forecaster that the NDFD forecast, or whether it be the NBM forecast, is forecasting an event that is extreme climatologically is important, and to also put that in reference of climatological norms and such. I think the last bullet point there is also kind of important to emphasize, that the forecaster is able to provide appropriate information that allows decision makers to forecast in the appropriate context, and kind of improves our messaging. This project, after discussion with members of the team, and I apologize, I did not list all the members of the team, and I would do a disservice if I tried to do it from memory, so I won't do that. But from additional discussion with this team, it kind of led into, well, maybe this would be something good to also try to develop a prototype, for assessing predictability of the impact. So kind of one little spiel that I tangent to go off here is the modernized forecast process, and you can kind of see the little image there in the bottom right. But to me, and through discussion with a lot of you guys, and with a lot of Sues and other people from other regions, really what we're doing now is we're going through the forecast process is, we need to develop the message, and we need to think about message development throughout the entirety of the forecast process. It's not anymore where your forecast database or the GFE grids are done, and then you develop the message afterwards. We have to think about that message development throughout the entire forecast process. And I think a lot of what the forecast process involves now, with a common starting point, is really trying to identify potential messaging opportunities. And once we identify those potential messaging opportunities, we want to try to refine and assess whether predictability is high enough to message that event. So if it's a high impact event, obviously we can start, or we should start, messaging it at lower predictabilities. But with that in mind, and I think we've all kind of seen this, and maybe have even done some experiments with it, that assessing predictability from forecaster to forecaster is highly variable. Even when they're looking at the same exact set of data. There's a lot of ensemble visualization tools that are being developed to try to help with this issue and try to close that gap from forecaster to forecaster. But one thing that we wanted to try to do here, I think, is kind of develop like a prototype tool for the modernized forecast process that not only identifies messaging opportunities, but also then tries to assess the predictability of those messaging opportunities, while also kind of putting the weather in context, and like I said, considering predictability. I want to go over my personal interest just briefly before I demonstrate the website. I think going over my personal interest kind of will understand what I felt, or understand the scope of the project and what potentially could become available from this prototype tool. So this project especially appealed to me because our office was kind of working on a similar project, although albeit not quite the same, but trying to put forecasted blizzard conditions, or excuse me, forecasted blizzard events, or at least the impacts from a forecasted blizzard event in context with past blizzards. We've had numerous winter IWT meetings over the past several years, and one of the main items that we get from our partners with regards to blizzards is, they want awareness as to what are going to be the potential impacts from the blizzard. So there's different flavors of blizzards, and they want to kind of know that level of impact expected from the blizzard, kind of put it in context with past blizzards. It really kind of came to head, and we really started this BSI project after a couple years ago. We had a blizzard that we were forecasting pretty extreme impacts, 20 some inches of snow with very strong winds, and we ended up messaging it as historic. So in our headers we said historic blizzard expected. The only issue and problem we ran into is we didn't consider the areal extent or the duration of those blizzard conditions. And although where that blizzard did occur, it was pretty extreme. It had 10, 20 inches of snow, 70-mile-per-hour winds, and the recovery time within that area was a couple days. However, it didn't hit Grand Forks or Fargo, where the majority of our population live, and we did get some negative feedback from that. And a lot of people compared it to a blizzard that occurred March of 1966, that had a very long duration and was very widespread, and had all the snow and the wind to go along with that. So Andrew Moore gave a science sharing presentation a couple months ago on the BSI, and I won't go into details of it, but I think by looking or using tools like this can lead to proper messaging that can put anticipated impacts into context. And we don't want to cry wolf too much, and I think having that consistent messaging from event to event is vital, so that people can set their expectations of what to expect. So as I go through the demo, I just want you to keep a couple things in mind. This is a prototype, and just vision the possibilities that can come out of it. There's a few things missing. There's some poor web design issues. The legends aren't available on every page that they should be. There's no button to bring you back to the home page and things like that. So there's a lot of other features that probably should be added. And I think, keep in mind also that a tool or feature like this could probably also be expanded to include like event impacts. I'm thinking like maybe something like the WSSI output that looks at all aspects of the event and puts it into context with past events. This prototype was developed with individual parameters, so we have max-T, min-T, and QPF available, and I think you need to kind of develop it with individual parameters first before getting too big with the project. And eventually, and there's talk of a tool like this that obviously it's a prototype, eventually getting integrated into the WSUP viewer. So quickly, I just want to show you the page here and just take you over, go over a couple of the features. So on the front page, there's a table. It's a CONUS table. One of the things Jim Nelson really wanted to get in here was that NDFD records website that is on the WPC set of websites. So what we have here is basically the first number are the number of stations expected to break a record, and then the second number are the number of stations expected to be close to breaking a record. So we have high max, high min, low max, low min, and record QPF. If you click on the cell, it basically brings up a map of the CONUS, and there's also an Alaska version available, but it brings up a map of the CONUS with all the values that are expected to either break or be close to breaking a record. So in this way, I think it gives you a first order understanding of a high impact event, and also can give you some information about duration and aerial extent of those high impact events. You can click on a site and it will tell you the forecast, it will give you the record. You can also, this is available for the NDFD forecast and the NBM forecast, so click on view table, click on the same cell and you can see the NBM forecast as well. We'll go back to the NDFD forecast. So I think pretty powerful kind of tool for us to be able to identify, quickly identify messaging opportunities. The other thing that I want to point out is I talked about assessing predictability, right? So let's click on Saturday. We'll click on this cell here. We have 2 sites expected to, according to our NDFD forecast, would break record 24-hour QPF, 19 get close. They're all in this area. So you can kind of zoom in, you can see the aerial extent and quickly identify that. So we'll look at Milwaukee a little bit closer. We're forecasting 0.94 inches. The record was 24-hour record is 0.77 inches. So in this cell, you would type in NKE, click enter, and then go to view table. And each site that's available through the ThreatX data, I believe, you can bring up then a table of forecasted information. Again, available for the NDFD and the NBM. We'll go back to the NDFD view table. And when you click on each cell, it will bring up a violin plot for that site for that time period. On this violin plot, you can see the legend and what's available. Obviously, if the violin plot, like on this table, is not within the range of the violin, like the blue star is not going to appear. But we'll go back here. So here the blue star appears, and it gives you an ability to quickly, I think, quickly assess predictability and compare it to, compare it or put it in context of climate, basically. Just one caveat for this: the violin is composed of GEFS members. So right now the violin plot is GEFS is just basically composed of GEFS members. But as I vision this, imagine if you could view the violin plot of all the NBM members, which you can kind of do or currently do on the WSUP viewer, which is great. But the WSUP viewer doesn't show you that record precip or compare it to the NDFD forecast, or in this case, the WPC forecast. NDFD is available through the first 3 days, and then it shows you the WPC forecast for days 4 through 7. But I digress a little bit there. And then, my next thought is, what if you could then simply compare and contrast individual ensemble systems like this that make up the NBM? So, click on a button, you can see the GEFS violin plot. Click on a button, you can see the European violin plot, and so on and so forth. So, I think doing that and maybe even comparing it to the NBM percentiles can be pretty powerful. And a tool like this that quickly identifies messaging opportunities and then leads to the ability to assess predictability can be pretty powerful. So I believe that's all I have. I think if there is funding for this next fiscal year, which it doesn't look like there will be funding for this project, we would look to add snow data and add selection for CWAs and things such as that. But that's kind of what I wanted to show you, and I'll send it back to you, Randy.